I mean, even at this point, do you show up to set and be like, oh my God, I'm about to do a scene with Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes, you do. And I think if you didn't, there would be something wrong with you. You need to have some of that energy when you go into a scene. If you go into a scene knowing that you're wonderful and like knowing how to do it, it's not going to be right. Because nobody walks into a room knowing, I'm going to know exactly what I'm going to do. Like everyone walks into a room trying to figure it out. As human beings, we don't know how we're going to be. So you're always just figuring it out as we go. So like I think if you walk into a scene knowing how to do it, you're fucked.
Yeah. Please join me in welcoming Cillian Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Again, congratulations on the nomination.
Thank you.
I know it's a cliche, but were you up at 5 a.m.? You're on like Irish time, so you're probably not asleep at 5 a.m. LA time.
I was asleep actually. Yeah.
You were? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, but my sons were awake. They're in Dublin, so I woke up and they texted me.
Oh,
so
no way. You heard from them?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
That's the best way to hear.
I guess so. Yeah. I was like, why aren't you at school?
That's a good point, yes. Then dad mode kicks in.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Well, again, this is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors.
It's so nice to be here.
I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card? And I know for you this might be different because you had probably been working for a while before you made your first American film.
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I had been, yeah. I didn't do my first film. I think I've been like working 4 or 5 years doing theater, and then I did like little independent Irish films at home, and I didn't make a. It may have been actually. It may have been Batman Begins. I can't quite recall. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a long time ago.
Wow.
Now also.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah. So that was Chris's fault also, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I actually do want to go back to the beginning because from what I understand, you didn't really start out wanting to be an actor. You were in a band, I think.
Yes, I feel like this is quite a common thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you guys are failed musicians or frustrated
failed musicians, raise your hands. Yes.
It seems like quite a common story. That's really what I wanted to do since I was very little. I was playing music and listening to music and writing music and playing with my brother and my friends, and that's all I really thought about doing. I'd never even been to the theater. I was interested in films, but that was when I was from about like 14 or 15. But just as a film fan, as a film buff. But and that was quite serious. And then it went, like when I was 20, the band, we got offered a record deal, and then we didn't take the record deal because my brother was still in school. And my parents said, you can fuck up your life, but he can't. So it all kind of fell apart.
Yes. So then you became an actor and did fuck up your life.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. In a different way, yeah.
No, I mean, if I recall correctly, you kind of have this crazy story where you walked past a theater and decided to like go in on a whim.
It's. I mean, that's the headline. But I was in school and we had this thing in Ireland where between the exam cycles we call it a transition year where you kind of just don't do much work, and you get to try out other different things. So there was a drama module. This when I was about 16 or 17, and the head of a Cork theatre company came in and did the workshop with us, and I just had a huge man crush on him. He was so cool, and we just messed around and improvised, and I played, did little sketches with my buddies, and then I would see him around in the pubs in Cork, and I'd be out drinking and like playing music, and then I eventually went to see a play that they put on, which was a production of A Clockwork Orange in Cork City, and it was in a nightclub, this very famous nightclub in Cork City, and it was a promenade version, and it was like unbelievably dangerous and kind of sexy and wild, and it was my first time seeing theatre. so I'd kind of busted through all the proscenium arch theatre, traditional theatre, and seen this really experimental, wild piece of theatre. And then I just began to pester him for an audition, and eventually he gave me an audition for a play, and I did the audition. Yeah.
And you got the role, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Your first audition ever?
Yeah.
And did you even really know how to prepare an audition? Did you know what you were doing?
No, I was actually hitchhiking in France, and I got sent the script.
I don't know why that's funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, if you were with me at the time, it was a disaster. But I was hitchhiking in France, and I was in a campsite, and they sent me the script to my tent.
To your tent.
Yeah, and then so I didn't know quite how to prepare it, so I
Yeah.
just read it, and then I came back and did the audition.
Who brings it to your tent? Like, how did they?
They sent it
before
to
cell
the
phones?
campsite, and the guy was like, "Oh, it's those two Irish
Right.
losers." Yeah.
So you get us. This is Disco Pigs, I presume.
Yes, Disco Pigs, yeah.
And this is by, I always butcher her name. I'm sorry. It's Enda Walsh.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Who you would go on to have a very fruitful collaboration with.
Yeah, many things. Yeah.
Yeah. What was sort of your? I mean, that's a tough role for your first project.
Yeah.
Kind of it started a string of troubled youths that you played.
Suppose I had always loved stories as a kid. I'd always read an awful lot. There was an awful lot of books in our house, and so I knew I loved story, and I had a feeling, just an instinct, that this was a good story. And he was very damaged kid, but it was all set in Cork, where I'm from, and written in this kind of like what Burroughs did with Clockwork Orange, this kind of patois, this kind of like kind of made up language, and so it was kind of familiar to me, and it felt kind of natural, and it was kind of musical. So, and when I was doing theatre, it felt a little bit like playing live music, because it was that electricity you feel with an audience.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted in playing music, but it didn't work out. So I felt it was like a stand-in for playing live music was this theatre, and the play was just me and an actress, and we used to perform it on stage like this. It was the dimensions of like a pool table, and it was incredibly visceral, wild play, and really physical, and so it was quite rock and roll, I suppose. And so for me, that was a great substitute.
And that first time on stage, did you already know, or did you know sort of in that moment that this is what you wanted to do with the rest of your life?
I didn't really, but it felt very at home.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very natural, and I loved being someone else. Like, I loved not having my own shit. Like, I just loved not being somebody else. But I didn't. Again, it was kind of, when you're 20, you have that kind of confidence of youth that you don't. But the play was very successful, and we like immediately went on tour everywhere. It was initially had a 2-week run, and then it just went, and so it was just kind of on a bit of a wave,
Yeah, right out of the gate, it was a hit show, and it seems like you kept working pretty regularly in theater and doing classics. Like, I think you were doing Shakespeare and Chekhov.
Yeah.
Everyone here is so angry right now.
No, yeah, I did have like a long
Yes.
stints of unemployment
Yes.
as well in between that.
Yes,
Working in bars and working in restaurants.
I was going to ask if you had to take survival jobs.
I did all of that as well.
Okay.
It wasn't all like easy peasy, but I did. When I got that play, then I started reading theatre. Like, I started reading all those plays, trying to educate myself, and then. Yeah, I was lucky to work with this great theatre company in Ireland called Druid Theatre Company, and so did quite a few plays with them, and did lots and lots of plays. And I really believe that, like, being on stage, learning with other great actors, doing it night after night, figuring it out, rehearsals. I think you just learn at a much more accelerated pace than you do certainly doing film and television anyway.
And it really is on-the-job training. Like, I know you can, research, you can prepare for roles and things like that, but there's something about doing it. Yeah, that just, you start to learn fast.
Yeah, and I loved the rehearsal process. I loved sitting in a room just dismantling a character and putting it back together and trying to figure out everything about all the other actors, and then getting it up in its feet in the gradual process of making a piece, and it felt very creative,
Did you sort of think that your career would be on stage, or were you open to film and TV, or did that seem like a whole world away?
Honestly, at the beginning, I was just delighted to be working, and I felt like a total interloper. I felt like I was really winging it because I hadn't trained, and but people were like, all of the community were so kind and welcoming to me, and just I was just happy to be working. Really.
Yeah. When did you start getting in front of the camera? I know you did some short films, but there's a big difference. I mean, all kinds of acting are different, but I can't even imagine, there's no school that really taught at the time what to do when there's a camera in your face.
Yeah, I watched a lot of films as well during those periods of unemployment and sitting around, and like I spent an awful lot of time watching other actors and watching all the great movies, and again, I think that's a great education. And then I did little, like, small parts in short films, quite a few. And it was in film and telly, it was really, really gradual, like a little part here and there, a little part here and there, a slightly bigger part here. There was nothing immediate. And I think I would have found that quite terrifying if you landed a huge role in a huge movie at 22 or something. I don't think I could have survived that, or I think I wouldn't. I'm not made that way. Do you know? It needed to be kind of pay my apprenticeship. You know what I mean?
And how were you at auditioning during this time period? I mean, you must have been pretty good. You started booking stuff right out of the gate. It's such a weird process, I know.
Yeah, I was terrible. I was terrible. I was not bad at the kind of chat. They're like, "How are you? Nice to see you."
That's acting.
But I was terrible at the scenes because I always felt like, you do realize this isn't what I would do. I mean, this is just a vague, rudimentary sketch of what I would like to do, and it feels so it's so reductive a process. You know, and I know there's no other way to do it. But all you need is one person to click with that gets it. Like, and I had great support from a casting director in Ireland called Maureen Hughes, who, she's wonderful, and she was really, really supportive to me, and she would, bring me in the room and was really kind, and I guess, like, would tell a director, like, there's not much to look at, but if you give him a minute.
Yes.
And then, so people began to kind of believe in the work earlier, as I went along, I suppose.
So she said manage expectations, and then you could just blow them away.
No, it was just, she I think because I'd done this play, she had seen it on stage,
Nice.
but she knew that I wasn't very good in the room. I wasn't very confident in the room,
Do you think that was the main thing, was a lack of confidence?
Yeah, and experience, and still feeling like I was not part of this. It was, but again, the more you do, the more work you do, and people were so kind and so generous to me, and gradually over time you begin to get more and more confidence, and you do a long run in a play, and I always think you come off a play if you. I did Disco Pigs for 18 months on and off, and I've done runs of plays for 8 months, 9 months, and then you have to be somewhat of a better actor after that.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And then I think it was in 2001 you actually had 2 leading roles. They did the film adaptation of Disco Pigs, and you also were in John Carney's On the Edge. I assume you did Disco Pigs first.
I actually think I did On the Edge first.
Like I said, I assume you did On the Edge first.
Yeah.
Did you have to audition for that? I would imagine.
Both of those, yeah.
Did you audition for Disco Pigs?
Yeah. Yeah, I did, and it was, it was fair enough, I suppose. It was a different medium and a different script and different director, and but I really, really wanted to do it and finish play the character on film at the time.
Wow. So On the Edge came first, and these are both, very challenging roles. You're playing very troubled. The character in On the Edge is suicidal, and you're still fairly new to this. Did you sort of know how to take care of yourself? When you're immersing yourself in a role like that.
You mean personally?
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
I mean, you turned out okay. So.
Probably not. I don't know about you guys, but I've always found that I need it to be really immersive. I don't treat it like a going to the office 9 to 5. I've never really figured, it's probably not a very healthy life-work balance for me. Both plays and plays and film, I tend to like kind of cancel everything and I have to just focus on the work. And it becomes all-consuming and probably not in an entirely healthy way. And I've gotten a bit better at it, I suppose, over the years. But I found it necessary to go that kind of distance. Always have, yeah.
Even now.
Yeah.
What was it like moving Disco Pigs from 2 people in a small room to film? And working with a slightly larger crew. I know it's an independent movie, but doing the same role, but it's also not the same.
Yeah, I think I had to kind of modulate it, obviously, and I was conscious that I couldn't. The play was the character was very big, very very kind of damaged, kind of broken, and as I was describing, the play was really really. What's the word? It was such a tiny little production, and we would play to these huge theaters. So you had to transmit the energy to the gods, if you know what I mean, to the back of the theater. And I realized that when I did the play or the film, that there was a different thing, and that it had to be a more projected internal performance. And I think that's what you realize about film acting. That you have to modulate it always. Yeah.
And that was 22 years ago. Have you gone back and watched Disco Pigs recently? No, it's shocking. It holds up really well.
Good.
Yeah. I saw it in the last couple months. I should have said shockingly, that movie was good. And I've also heard, again, correct me if any of these are scurrilous rumors, but it was that film that caught the eye of Danny Boyle when he was casting 28 Days Later.
Apparently, yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, yeah.
That's amazing. So did he reach out to you? I believe there was an audition process for that as well.
That was a long audition process. That was like a 6 auditions. I remember put me through for that. And I desperately wanted to do that. Yeah, I knew that was an excellent script. And it was the first time, I suppose, that for me to work with a recognizably named, director like Danny. And I had, they were formative films for me. Trainspotting and what was the first one? Shallow Grave, Trainspotting. I remember going to see them in the cinema. They were huge for me. So I really desperately wanted that one.
Did you also know you were going to be sharing a screen with Irish royalty Brendan Gleeson? Because this just would have been too much for me.
My first ever film part was with Brendan. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Pat the Barman, you haven't seen it?
No, but he mentioned this actually last year. I remember. Did he? Yeah. So that's nice. So you already had that. I had worked with him. Yeah. I've worked with Brendan 5 or 6 times now. One of my all-time heroes, and the kindest, sweetest man, and just an absolute legend. And I remember on that first film, I was playing Pat the Barman, and I had to pour him a pint of Guinness, and my hand, shaking. But he was so kind and just I was just a kid, but he would spend the time and talk to you. Yeah. And I think that shows the measure of the man. Mm-hmm. We actually have an audience question, and forgive me in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. Haley Rose, I believe. Hey, wants to know, what was your process to prepare for 28 Days Later? I spent a lot of time with Alex Garland, the writer. And with Danny, and we rehearsed and talked about it a lot. We did some physical movement stuff as well, and I tried to kind of get reasonably fit because there was an awful lot of running in it. And I didn't watch the Romero movies. I wasn't too aware that we were making a zombie movie, to be honest with you. They never say the Z word. Well, no, and that's true. And I genuinely, at the time, I thought it was which totally is a sort of a, it's a meditation on the state of society. And at the time, it was just right around the time that SARS happened. Do you remember? And then there was all this air rage stuff going on, and I never felt it was kind of like a zombie film.
And I'm glad I didn't watch the Romero movies because I didn't realize kind of how hallowed those movies are. And also, I didn't realize that it really, before 28 Days Later, there weren't really that many zombie movies. It was kind of a dead genre.
Hey!
I wish I thought that up.
Yeah.
And so Danny and Alex rebooted it.
Yeah, they really
Yeah,
did. With
yeah.
fast zombies, too.
Yeah,
it
and that had
seems.
never
Yeah.
been done before.
Yeah. I didn't know if we were allowed to say zombies because they're always like very specific. It's
They're the infected, aren't they? In that movie?
yeah. I was thinking raged, but that's not the right words because it's called Rage. It's really a pandemic movie if you think about it.
Well, the amount of like memes, I do know what a meme is. That everyone, that everybody sent me during the pandemic of 28 Days Later
Yeah.
was crazy. Yeah, it just shows, I guess, good writing.
Yep.
Is prescient.
Yeah.
You know? It always remains prescient and relevant. You know?
Yeah, I know, that's crazy. I'm curious, did you sort of know, you knew it was a great script. Did you know when you were making it that it was going to be something that, was going to change your life and career, really?
No, I mean, you never know. But it connected, like it just connected. And that was one of those ones as well that people would go and see a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
And then I remember they re-released it. They released it around Halloween, I think. And we shot two endings. We shot one ending where I'm going to give it all away, but
It's been 23 years, people.
We'll be fine. One ending where my character dies, and one ending where he survives. And I think they were bringing out like, you could go and see one ending and then see the alternate ending as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like Clue.
It's pretty good marketing.
Yeah. Do you have a preferred ending? I like the optimistic one.
Yeah, I think when I was younger and a bit more nihilist, and I was like, nah, I mean,
Yeah.
and I like the image of two women surviving
Yeah.
at the end, and fuck the men, But
Yeah.
but I think they wanted the version of the hope,
Yeah. And also, we're coming up on 28 years later. So if they want to bring you back for a sequel, it's best that they left you alive.
Well, I'm available, yeah.
Did you hear that, Danny Boyle? He's a big fan of this. So I correct me if I'm wrong again, but that seems like it brought you to the attention of America, aka Hollywood. Did you find like offers were coming, or had they already sort of started to trickle out for films here in America?
Well, that's the way it goes. Chris Nolan saw that movie,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I had a meeting with Chris, and so that that's just sort of the way it goes. So he had seen it and liked the movie, and then we met and chatted. So that was the beginning, or at least the initial beginning of the relationship with Chris.
Which came first? Was it Batman Begins or Red Eye?
In terms of shooting,
Yeah, or just which one you booked first, even?
Let me think. I can't remember. Oh no, I shot Batman Begins first, and then Breakfast on Pluto, and then Red Eye.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
You did
yeah.
Breakfast on Pluto in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I unabashedly love Red Eye, but I won't harp on it. But I do think that movie for the first half an hour is a great rom-com.
Well, that's what I really liked about the script,
Yeah.
was that duality and that switch. Every
Yes.
actor loves to play that, like, oh, you think you're one thing and then you're another. That was very appealing.
Yeah.
And Rachel McAdams is so brilliant.
Yes.
And I loved working with her. So.
Yeah, I told my mom to turn it off at 30 minutes and just know that they end up together. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. Remember those phones used to have on planes?
Yes, that you would actually pull out of the back of the plane.
I don't know if it would still work now, that movie.
No. And also, you couldn't get Brian Cox. That guy's too busy.
He would be too expensive, yeah.
So going back to the first time you met Christopher Nolan for Batman Begins, I mean, do you remember that first meeting?
Yeah, I remember I was doing a play actually in Edinburgh, and I got this call to say, Chris wants you to come out to LA. So I flew out here and was like unbelievably jet lagged, but again, I was like with Danny. I had watched all of Chris's films. I had seen them in the cinema, and I was such an admirer of his work, and they're exactly the sorts of films that I love. Yeah. And we just connected very quickly. We just chatted like for a long time, just about film really, and we just seemed to get on. I mean, I genuinely thought it was an absurd idea of me auditioning for Batman, but he seemed to think it was a good idea, so I did it. But it was something in that screen test that he saw. So that's how it started, you know.
And it wasn't just a screen test. Like, did they have you in the costume and like a set?
It was on the Warner's lot, and they had the set, and they had Wally Pfister lit it, and
Wow.
and we were all in the Val Kilmer batsuit, and I think
The Val Kilmer batsuit?
yeah. All
I
of
mean, I
us,
guess that's what they had.
That's
sure.
what there was lying around.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
How did it fit?
It didn't fit. Yeah. It didn't fit, but that didn't really matter. I suppose, yeah.
So at what point did he say, you know, you're not going to be Batman, but we have this other really cool role. It's going to be the first time I put a mask on you, but not the last.
Yeah, that's true.
He loves to cover up your face. I don't know what that's about.
True. Yeah. Ask him.
You have his number?
Yeah, he doesn't have a phone.
That's right. He doesn't have a cell phone.
No.
That's so weird.
No.
I love it. So at what point did you sort of know that things were pivoting? Or did you know early on that might be a possibility?
Well, like I said, I thought this would be just to have been in a room with Chris
Yeah.
Nolan and done a screen test and like, you know, shot on 35, and that was enough for me.
The screen test was shot on 35?
Yep, yeah,
Good God.
it's the whole deal.
I love that man.
Yeah, I mean, he's something else. So that for me was enough, and I kind of closed the door, and then he called me after it on his wife's phone, and then he offered me that part. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I just assumed it was a landline.
It could have been a landline.
It's probably one of those
yeah.
ones that still goes like chick, 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 chick. I'm so old, forgive me. But I mean, how exciting was that? Because I actually think that Jonathan Crane is probably the best role in the movie.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it was fun. Like, it was great to just play an actual. He's one of the oldest villains.
Yeah.
And I remember I got given all the old comics and like some of the first comics he appears in apparently, and it was just fun because there's no like. What's the subtext here? It's just a baddie, you know. So it was
Sometimes that's the answer.
Yeah.
I've actually told you this before, but at the time I had a therapist who looked exactly like you, and it was very weird. And I kind of had to stop seeing him because it just weirded me out so much.
I don't quite know how to respond to that.
I showed you a photo of him like 10 years
Did
ago at
you?
Inception, and you said, like, maybe you were just being polite, but you said, I literally thought you were showing me a photo of me.
Really?
Yes, he looked just like you. It was so weird.
The question is why you had a photograph of him.
Because I would not go around telling people my therapist looks like Cillian Murphy, and they'd give me that look, and then I would show them. And then they would go, holy cow, he really looks like Cillian Murphy.
Okay, I believe you.
Did you have any idea at the time that, like, I think Scarecrow is the only villain who returns for all three movies? Did you know that'd be a runner? Or?
No, and he's not dead.
No, he's still out there. That's a great thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was that's Chris. You know, because Chris was writing the script, so he very kindly brought me back in little bits in the second and the third one, and I was just thrilled again to come back, and it was great fun. It was great fun playing that character, and you could be a bit broader and have a bit more fun. And it was again just wild being on those sets, and you know, any time you're working with Chris, it's just a gift. You learn so much being with him. So I was just thrilled to be asked back. You know,
I mean, the last time we saw him, he was still a judge. So
Yes.
as far as we know,
Who knows?
he could
Yeah.
still be there in Gotham, ruling over a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
And so you had already shot Breakfast on Pluto before you did Batman Begins.
Yes.
Okay, because it's such an interesting time because.
No, sorry, I did Batman Begins, then Breakfast on Pluto. So it's just a long time ago.
But you really early on proved you couldn't be typecast because you went from Batman Begins to Breakfast on Pluto, and also The Wind That Shakes the Barley.
Yeah.
I think came out the same year. These are three crazy different roles. One is, a doctor who joins the IRA in the 1920s. The other is a transgender woman. How were you sort of choosing your roles at this point?
Part of it is director-led, because like it was Neil Jordan and Ken Loach and Chris, obviously, and then part of it is script, and they've always been the two guiding kind of factors. And then again, like not wanting to ever try and repeat yourself or to try and push yourself, because it's the only way that you get any better, and it's the only way, I suppose, that you get to flex your muscles as an actor or kind of go deep, you know, is by trying other stuff. And I've always said this, like, if I read a script and I go, oh, yeah, I can do that, like, I won't do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you actually done that with a script?
Yeah, I can say I know exactly how to play this character, so I'm not going to do that.
Wow. I actually recently rewatched Breakfast on Pluto because Neil's one of my favorite directors, and it's such a beautiful performance.
Well, I loved the book. It's Patrick McCabe who wrote The Butcher Boy as well, who I'm a fan of, which you should all read. It's a beautiful Irish book. And so, again, that was a big challenge to play that part. But again, I'd love Neil's film. I petitioned Neil as well for that part.
Did you really?
Because I knew there was a script around, but he was like on the fence about whether he wanted to make it or not. So I used to just pester him. But like, pestering and perseverance does work. I mean, it certainly did in the days before emails and like social media and all that.
When you show up in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And write letters. I used to write a lot of letters to people, you know.
Because that's a beloved book and a beloved character. And I'm curious, you know, if there was pressure, if you drew a lot from the book, or if you were able to sort of see it as your own creation.
I mean, I never need ownership over it. It's always a collaboration. The script was beautiful, and but Neil and Patrick had collaborated on the script. It was they'd written it together, and for me, it's always you take it from anywhere. You know, take any inspiration from anywhere.
You also, I mean, really at the really high point in your career, you returned to the stage, starring in Mr. Men, again with Enda Walsh.
Correct,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm so paranoid I'm going to get that wrong. This is a really, I don't want to say one-man show because that implies, I think, something else out here. That like you're playing yourself, speaking to the audience, but it's a really you on stage by yourself, and it is a powerhouse performance. I don't think you ever stop moving. How did your agents feel about you know, taking a break from all these big Hollywood movies to go do a play in Ireland?
Well, you know, you tell the agents what you're doing. They don't tell you what to do. Yes,
but I don't think a lot of people know that at that point.
I think that's important to remember, particularly for young actors. So I felt like I needed to get back on stage, and I hadn't worked with Enda for a while, and we were really good friends, and he's one of the best writers in the world, and I thought, why am I not using this resource? Like, and we love working together. And it was a play that had been put on once, I think. He'd never put it on since. So we got back together, and he rewrote it, and then we went off. And I always felt like a one-man show was kind of like the Everest of theatre. Can you do it, or you know, are you strong enough to do it, and is it possible to do it? So I wanted to challenge myself that way. And again, it had been 5 or 6 years since I'd done a play, and I felt like I needed to do it.
And you did it for a long time, didn't you? You moved like to different theaters with it, didn't you? We did it in Galway, Dublin, London, and New York. So yeah. Wow. Was that the last time you were on stage?
No, I did. Okay. I did 3 more since then, I think.
Oh wow, really? What do you like about, you know, returning to that medium? Do you try to get back as often as you can?
I think it's just the freshness of it. It's the danger of it. It's the fragility of it, and it's the audience connection. And again, it's that sort of pushing yourself and testing yourself, and like getting up and doing it every single night at 8 o'clock, and like, you know, the thing about theatre is I've always felt much more. I've always had less nerves on stage than I have with film, because it's always felt to me like when you're on stage and you have a bad night or it doesn't work out, you get up and do it again tomorrow, and you fix it, and you be better, and you're better and better. And then, but on film, you know, it's committed forever to celluloid for it, and I've loved that freedom, and that you have more ownership of a character when you're on stage doing it, but when in a one-man show, you have complete ownership, you know, and that was really exciting to me.
But there's also no one else to blame if something goes awry on stage.
Yeah, but I like I like that. I kind of like that.
Did that ever happen where, you know, something just went off the rails, or you lost your place? Or just the idea of doing a play in general is scary enough, but like being by yourself.
I like to do, like like stage actors often talk about, that you have two sides of your brain working. Where there's the one side which is just like in the character and like being present and in the moment, and then there's the other sort of stage management side of your brain that's going, I left that prop over there. I'm gonna have to go back and get that in a second, and I'm gonna have to find my light and a way to get back. And so the two sides of your brain are running concurrently. So it's very satisfying.
Yeah, that does actually sound great, as opposed to, I know sometimes on set you can wait for hours to do anything, so it's a nice balance, I guess.
Yeah, it is invigorating. Yeah.
Also, around this time, you chose to do a series, Peaky Blinders, which, just ended an amazing run last year, technically, I guess, 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you know you were committing to play this role for nearly a decade?
No. No, that's not like it was just like most things I go into. It's just completely haphazard. Other than I knew the scripts were excellent. Mm-hmm. Like I knew they were really special scripts, and I was aware of this kind of thing that was happening in television at the time, particularly here about these like monumentally brilliant TV shows, this long form television that was happening, and it hadn't really caught fire in Britain yet or in Ireland in terms of that long running show. And then these scripts came along. There was 2 episodes, the first 2 episodes. They were so confident in their vision, and the character was so excellent that I thought, great. But there was this tiny little show on BBC. We didn't even know. We were just commissioned for 6 eps. And then even the first series people didn't go crazy for it. It was only like the second series, it gradually, again, very slowly, incrementally, people began to like it, and I think the show gained confidence and the writing gained confidence, and it really grew in a lovely organic kind of way,
Did you even know after the first series that you would be back for more?
No.
Wow. Because over here, correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like it exploded here because of Netflix.
I think the Netflix thing definitely happened.
Yeah.
It helped it, for sure.
Yeah, and so it wasn't a gradual build. It felt like overnight here.
Yeah, but I think you guys might have gotten 2
Yes,
series.
we did.
Yeah.
We were, and yet we still wanted more. We were very greedy.
Yeah. Well, that's the nature of streaming. It is like
Yes.
that. That's the nature of it. Yeah.
We have a question from Violet. Wants to know, are you happy to retire being Tommy?
I'm really, really, really proud of the work. I'm really proud that we managed to, I think, improve on each season, or that's the wrong word, but I think each season got deeper and richer, and I think it never plateaued. It felt to me, anyway, that the show never plateaued, and I think that's a rarity, and it's a tribute to everybody involved in it. I loved playing him. He was exhausting, and so wildly different for me that each time going back was a kind of a journey, but one that I loved. I'm really not sentimental about work, I feel like the next thing is the most exciting thing, and I mean, like it was a 10-year period in my life, so it is significant. But I always feel like let's keep moving,
Yeah. I have a question from Narane. Did I get that right? Thank you for the phonetic spelling. Wants to know, have you ever considered or wanted to do comedy? To which I would say, Watching the Detectives with you and Lucy Liu. That was a very charming movie. But do you get to do comedy much?
I don't really get sent the scripts. I mean, I've done an awful lot of comedy on stage, and I've done a lot of physical comedy, and but I think somehow in this sort of movie world, it hasn't really come my way, and I probably didn't have the confidence, to do it at the time. I feel much more confident in kind of slapstick mode, which I've done a lot of that on stage, and I did it early. Some of the early Irish movies there's a lot of black comedy in them, but I mean, if I got a great script, sure, but I don't get sent them. So.
She also wanted to add, and I'm just gonna say it because there's a lot of cards expressing the sentiment. Love Sunshine.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Nice one.
Speaking of that film, that was another collaboration with Danny Boyle, and you've not only worked with some of the best directors out there. I mean, Anthony Minghella on Cold Mountain, of course, Christopher Nolan. They bring you back, time and again. What's sort of the secret to getting asked back?
I suppose it has to go well the first time.
Yes.
I think I love recollaboration. I think it's the richest form of working with somebody, because the first time you kind of get to know each other, and you get to establish the taste, and you know, you get the sense of humor and everything else, and then a second time it's just straight to the work, and then the third time it's like, so the work gets purer and purer, and I'm really into that. So there's less talking needed, and more just doing, and I really relish that. So I love work, and I've worked. There's several people I've worked with like several times, and I'll keep going back to work with them if they'll have me, because I just love it.
So what happens on the 6th time with Christopher Nolan when he says, I'm coming back to you again, and guess what? You're going to be the lead this time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a 3-hour epic movie where you're going to age several decades. Is this all exciting you or scaring you a little bit, or both?
Well, I get asked this question quite a bit, and honestly, like, it was because it came out of the blue. He you know, I didn't know that he was writing the part. I didn't know that he was writing the script, and
because he doesn't answer a phone.
He doesn't have, and then, so I got the call, and it was out of the blue, and you know, your first reaction naturally is sort of shock, and then the second one is like, you know, joy and euphoria, and then I really quickly switced it to, I need to start working now.
Yeah.
You know, it was like within a couple of hours, I was like, right, I need to start working.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was a huge thing. It was going to be a biggie, and I knew it was a massive responsibility, and I knew that, you know, I would have to, because Chris expects excellence from everybody, from every single actor, from every single crew member. It's kind of an unspoken thing, but we all just know that it's this level that you can only kind of dream at, working at that level that high. So I knew it was going to require an awful lot of work and prep. So I got straight into it. So that was the switch in my brain, you know.
Literally that day you got into it?
Yeah, because I had some sort of, you know, basic like knowledge of Oppenheimer in that period, but I needed to like get going quick. So I did.
And he said that, you know, he had the book that he was adapting, you know, sitting next to him. And from the very beginning, he pretty much knew he wanted you to play it, but he never gave you any indication until he was ready to go with this project.
Well, he said something really interesting, which is he doesn't like to write with actors in mind, because then it limits what he thinks he will write for them, which I think is brilliant. Because if you you know, so he's writing, maybe I was in the back of his mind, but he just didn't want that, so that he could write stuff that he'd never seen me do before, or hopefully that I'd never done before. So I think that's another just stroke of genius by him. So I guess that's the answer, isn't it?
So it's literally a call. Does he have a script to show you already? Or?
So he called me, and then it was at the end of COVID, so I couldn't go to America, but he came to Dublin with the script. So he always brings the script printed in red paper to you, and gives it to you. This has always happened over the 20 years of me working with him, and he gives it to you, and then he leaves the room, and then you read the script. And then you say, I said yes before I'd ever read the script, by the way, but that's the way he works. Do you know? So it's a very, it's quite moving, like, to read this thing, and it was written in the first person, you know, which I'd never encountered before. And so you sit there, and it was a long read, like it's 3 hours to read the thing, and it was vast and dense. But every single thing, if you've seen the film, every single thing in the movie is scripted.
Wow. There's
nothing by accident, nothing by chance. So every single detail, every single stage direction, everything was in there. And the movie is the script, or the script is the movie, I should say. And so that was a big day, to read it. Yeah.
What's he doing while you're in there for 3 hours reading? Is he like hanging in the living room, or?
I was in his hotel room, and he came to Dublin, and he's a big Francis Bacon fan. And then in Dublin we have a Francis Bacon museum where you get this actual Francis Bacon studio. So he went to see that.
No way! Yeah. And just came back 3 hours later?
Came back 3 hours later, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take any photos on your phone when he was gone?
No way.
Oppenheimer himself is so enigmatic. Where did you even begin in your research to understand him? Did you said you had like, a passing knowledge of him.
Yeah.
When you started to learn more about him, were you continuously surprised?
Always, yeah, always. It was endless. I mean, like normally, like I have played real life characters before, but never an iconic character like this, who is, we are living in Oppenheimer's world. What happened in 45 changed everything. We were living in the nuclear age because of him, and so there's so much. And I went straight into it, and there's so much text, there's so much archive stuff out there, and I dove into all of that. And then there's the book, obviously, and then there is the script, and it was an intense process. So he gave it to me in September 2021, and then we shot it in February 22. So I had 6 months. So I would have taken another 6 months, but I took it, and it was just from day one, just dive in. But the thing about prep is that you can also get lost in prep. And I personally don't think you should ever be fully prepped when you get to a set. I think it has to be the unknown, it has to be the unresolved. And that's what I wanted as well. I mean, there was the obvious things like the physicality and the voice and all of those things. But then in terms of, you need to have a freshness to him, like that, so that where you find it in the scene with your scene partners and with Chris. So like I was fully ready, but you're never finished.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
And how important was the voice? Because as well known as Oppenheimer is as a name, I don't know if many people necessarily know what he sounded like. So you probably had like a little leeway there.
I guess so. That's sort of a period American. Nobody talks like that anymore. You know, which is great, and so that you do have a bit of freedom there. I worked with a great dialect coach, William Conacher, who I've worked with over the years, who I should give real solid to because he was amazing on it, and we worked together very intensively. And it's kind of just the sort of timbre and the enunciation, and he sounded different to everybody else, and so just working on that for a long, long time. But I never knew I was going to do an impression. That's not my gig, that's not what I do. But I did want it to sound recognizably different and recognizably like someone who was so highly educated, so privileged, and one of the most brilliant minds that ever lived. So it does affect how you talk,
Why are Europeans so much better at American accents than we are at we sound comical when we try to do your accent?
Oh God, it's a room full of actors.
I'm sure everyone in here has a wonderful Irish accent, but for those that don't, why?
I don't know the answer to that question. Genuinely, I don't. I just do my best.
Yeah. Someone said you watch a lot of American TV.
Well, we do as kids. Like when in Ireland, when we were like when I was little, we had a the Irish TV stations, but they wouldn't import any British shows.
Really?
Yeah, for obvious reasons. So they would import a lot of American shows. So we'd watch a lot of I watched the A-Team and Chips and MacGyver and all those shows.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You were an A-Team fan?
Yeah.
Oh, I had the biggest crush on Murdoch.
I mean,
that's
he
was
a good
the role.
One. That's a
that
good
was
one.
the role.
Do you have a picture of him?
Weirdly, I have a dentist that looks just like Dwight Schultz. No. You learned so much in your research. Was there anything that even if it didn't make its way overtly into the film, that really surprised you or informed you about who this person was?
I can ask that as well. What I found really revealing and illuminating, and the most, above all, the thing that I used most was that he was really intensely human, and he was as flawed and as messed up and as contradictory as we all are, and that's what I wanted to bring to him, was the humanity of the man, not just the iconography and the genius and all of that, which you get that for free really with the hat and the silhouette, but that he was he was that kind of flawed, and he was that kind of twisted inside about what he was trying to do or not do, and he was living through the greatest dilemmas that the world has ever faced, and yet he was still a human being, you know, and he had relationships and he had children, and he experienced the world like we experience it, but just through this kind of different prism. So when I realized that, it all became less daunting, I think, you know.
It's so interesting to me because I didn't realize really how life and death the stakes were. I mean, not just for him, but for the universe. You know, and maybe that sounds naive, but I kind of, you know, because it's so far back in my history, I didn't realize that they literally thought this could destroy the world.
I think that was the for Chris when he was writing the script, was that they thought when they pressed the button in 45 in the desert that the whole world would disappear. Like that was the stakes, and I think that was the kernel of the whole of him figuring out how to tell the story and make the movie.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. And I know how it turned out, but I'm watching the movie and I'm like, oh God, I hope we don't get vaporized. Yeah. As I said, you're in pretty much every scene, playing this iconic figure over the course of decades. Can you talk about how you paced yourself, but you also kept track of where you were in the story? I don't know if you shot certain sections in chunks. I'm hoping that you weren't doing, you know, 2 different time periods in one day, but maybe you were.
I mean, we shot the film in 57 days, so it was...
Wow, I didn't realize
it was so fast. That's why the prep was so important. But when you have somebody like Christopher Nolan directing the movie, it's just a different level. I can't really overemphasize how fucking brilliant the man is. Like he's just next level. So we all knew that it was this outrageously fast schedule, and we had like we were working crazy hours and a crazy speed, but it never felt rushed within the scenes, if you know what I mean. And I just lent very heavily on him because the script came from his imagination. I lent very heavily on him in terms of where we were, at what timeline, and where in the story we were. And I kind of also, I knew the script, I knew it all. You know, which I've never done before, which was to kind of know it inside out. Because he also gets ahead. Like every single film that he's ever made, he's brought in under budget and ahead of schedule. So
if he can do it,
so like you'd be doing scenes, and then all of a sudden next week's work comes into this week because he's so fast. But I must emphasize that during the actual work, you feel like you've all the time in the world, and you never ever leave a scene feeling like, oh, I mean, we didn't get it. Yeah. You know, we didn't get it. And never felt that. So it's kind of remarkable.
And how much did it help to have this amazing hair and makeup team and these costumers?
Yes.
And, you know, as an actor, you can do so much work, but then you show up and these, you know, geniuses put you in these outfits and do the hair and makeup. How much does that help you, like, get into the character?
Oh, like, just like I can't really overstate that. It was huge. They were all again working at that extraordinary high level of excellence, and Chris had there was a few cardinal rules, like no wigs, or there was no wigs allowed in the film, and Oppenheimer's the only guy with a hat. If you think about it, when you only realize that when you think back on it. So we had a few cardinal rules like that, and then, like I said this before, like he sent me like a picture of like David Bowie, you know, David Bowie from the Thin White Duke era, and like all of these things were being factored in. But yeah, all of those guys, extraordinary talents, unbelievable. And again, they worked to such a high level because everyone felt it was kind of special, you know, and everyone felt that it was a story. The film was about something, you know.
And I've heard that his sets, you know, are not necessarily the serious affairs you would think they were. Like they're very professional, but like a lot of people have fun on them.
There is like it's incredibly focused. Yeah. They're the most focused sets you could work on. But yeah, there's room for levity. Yeah. Like we, you know, I had a lot of fun with. I know Emily's a good pal of mine, and like I know her for a few years, and we had a lot of fun and like Downey's just so fantastic and funny, and all of them were so kind to me because I was kind of in it for the long slog, and they'd come in and out, and they were all just really unbelievably supportive and generous and wonderful. But yeah, we did have a bit of a laugh. But it's sort of that like focus, breath, release, focus. Which is the way. There's no seats. There's no chairs.
I've heard this, but I didn't know if this was true or not.
There's no time to sit down.
Oh, okay. It's because you're constantly...
Yeah, which I love, because it feels to me always film sets, the most important commodity is time. And I can never understand when people are standing around on their phones looking at the internet or whatever the fuck. And like, why are we not, but he is always on, because he knows exactly what he needs. And he's got such an amazing relationship with Hoyta, his DP. And like, so there's no wasted time. So it's just a great set to be on.
Does he have a chair?
No.
Wow. Okay.
No.
Because I hate directors' chairs, though. Those things are so uncomfortable.
There's nobody has a chair, and there's no video village. There's no monitors. So.
And I know, like, I think everyone knows this, but maybe not actually. But so many of the effects are done practically and in camera.
All of them. Yeah.
And that must lend such an authenticity when you're like actually seeing the things in front of you. But if you're not sick to death of talking about the Trinity bomb test, I would love to know.
What? It's actually the least interesting from my point of view. Like from me, there was no bills on the set. Everything was relocation. Everything was relocation. And for example, we were in Oppenheimer's office in Princeton. Was Oppenheimer's office in Princeton. The Oppenheimer house in Los Alamos was the Oppenheimer house in Los Alamos. So everything. It was so you felt these vibrations off the walls, and it just seeped into all of our performances. The Trinity's test for sure, that was mind blowing to be part of it. But that was a very intricate series of visual effects and special effects, practical effects that. I don't want to give away any of Chris's secrets because I don't know how he did it really.
Yeah.
But for me, the actual being in the real environments. So there was never any stage where you're standing around on a stage. It was always on a real location, and that I'm a big believer in that. I feel that we as actors get very kind of lazy when everything is just fake around us. I think it does something real when it can't always be the case, and it doesn't always make sense. But when it can be real, I'm a big advocate of that.
I've also heard he likes to do that because basically, if you're getting things done practically, you don't have to. I'm not going to use the right nerdy term, but it's like it's like the actual footage. It's not a copy of the footage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like he gets like the cleanest, most pristine take as possible and keeps it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like he uses these IMAX cameras, which I had no idea were so noisy.
Yeah.
That was something I learned. And obviously for these sweeping vistas, but apparently they were like I've seen some set photos and they're right in your face.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He was kind of using the face as a landscape. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm a bit of a veteran of the IMAX cameras now, but they are huge. And if you've ever worked with them, they're huge and they're unbelievably noisy, so you have to kind of overcome that. But what he'll do is he'll do a take with the IMAX and it'll be right there, but then he'll do a sound only take.
Okay.
So you're still in the moment, and you'll get you'll get your take without the sound of the IMAX, and then he can lay it over. Yeah, you get used to it. It becomes a really a rhythm. Like in the camera department are unbelievable. So you get into this rhythm really quickly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You touched a little bit on the amazing cast, and every 5 minutes I feel like another great actor, shows up on screen, and it must have been so I don't know, fun is the right word, but from your perspective, every day Matt Damon shows up on set, or Benny Safdie, who doesn't even consider himself an actor, comes in and
boy, is he an actor.
I know, he's a fantastic. Aren't you so glad that he's the meme from that movie?
Oh, is he a meme?
The one I keep seeing is him in the sunscreen with the glass. I saw a lot of Teller costumes at Halloween, actually.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many Oppenheimers you probably saw.
I'm sure there were some.
There were a lot, but I actually saw more Tellers.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, he's extraordinary. And every day, I think about the casting of the movie, because Chris always casts exquisitely. The thing is that every single one of those parts were they were people of substance. Do you know what I mean? They were real historical figures. So you needed to get the best actors in the world to play them, and he did. So it never felt like stunt casting to me. They were all there because they were hugely important people in the story and in history. You know?
And you didn't want to do any composite characters,
Yeah.
I heard as well. So it's everyone really gets their moment. And
They're all for real.
Yeah. And he's said it better than anyone, I'm sure. But they were the rock stars of their time. So to have all these familiar faces isn't distracting. It's like that makes sense.
Yeah, and you needed that sort of. You needed those the weight, the gravitas, the presence that those actors bring to all those roles. You know.
And particularly your scenes with Emily Blunt, you knew her. You'd obviously worked on Quiet Place 2 together.
Yeah.
I'm so she's just got to be the greatest scene partner. But did it help sort of having that established chemistry?
Yeah, I mean, she's one of my favorite people in the world, and one of my favorite actors in the world. And I think when you cast people that have a history, you get something for free. We're supposed to be playing this couple that this very. Strange relationship that's sustained, this dysfunction that's sustained, and I think when you put two actors together that know each other and really trust each other, that's the big thing, is that you have this trust. And she's like just an extraordinary. There's nothing Emily Blunt can't do, really. She is really remarkable.
And like you said, there's got to be a great shorthand there, like you have with Christopher.
Totally, but again, like we had to go to these quite dark, extreme places, and if you can do that with someone that you really trust, then you get more from it, the scenes. I think because you can be braver.
For me, the last third of the film, or maybe I should say the third section, you know what I mean, when Oppenheimer is fighting back because his security clearance has been revoked.
Yeah.
People have very different opinions on this. Like some people think that maybe he was being naive, or some people think he was choosing to let history sort of make up its mind about him. Did you discuss this? I mean, I'm sure you did with your director, but also, did you have to have the answer to that question for yourself because you were playing it, even if you didn't share it with other people?
No, I'm always against sort of anything being prescriptive or kind of dogmatic. I think it needs to be up to the audience to decide. So we talked an awful lot about it. But I don't ever try to prejudge a character or prejudge how they're going to behave, or like obviously you talk about like try to understand why they might be behaving in a certain way, but I feel like that you should pose the question rather than answer it. That's what I try to do, and I always think sort of acting that I love and the acting that I aspire to is the where you withhold more than you kind of reveal. Rather than add to it, withhold from it, and that leaves the audience more to put into it. So that's what we were trying to do, I think.
And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but for you, what was the most challenging scene or moment, or just part of playing this character? I say character, even though he's a real person. Yeah,
it was all challenging. I mean, that hearing you were talking about, I loved that whole sequence because for me, it felt like we talked about theatre. It felt to me like we were a company of actors in this tiny little room, and we shot that at the end of the movie over 2 weeks, and it was incredibly intense. And you had all these stunning actors come in and do the piece, and I had this huge tete-a-tete with Jason Clarke, and it felt like being in a company of actors. It felt like being a troupe. And we were all there for each other. And most of those actors, when they were doing it, they would come in and do their last bit and then leave. So it's quite emotional. And obviously that's one of the kind of core scenes in the movie because it cuts back and forwards from that. So that was a big challenge because there was a lot of text and a lot of dialogue, and it was kind of the catharsis for him. But I relished it, it. Yeah.
It's such a claustrophobic room. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that was intentional, but I don't even know how you fit a camera in there with all those people.
I mean, tiny.
Yeah.
Like so tiny, and it just smelt of men, and it was just like it was getting to the summer then, so it was.
Yeah.
But then Chris would always turn the AC on like really high, and I freezing and skinny and all but I just again, we could have built that easy peasy, but much better to get to feel that like terrible bureaucracy, you know, that awful overpowering bureaucracy from it. So that's what he wanted to achieve, and he did it, you know.
It's funny, I saw Jason Clarke not a little while ago, and I kind of had this hostile reaction to him. Like, just, I was like, what? He's like a perfectly lovely person.
The loveliest.
And then I was like, oh, he was so good in Oppenheimer, I'm actually angry at him.
So good. So intimidating. So clever. But just another brilliant actor, brilliant team player.
Yeah, I mean, it is a ridiculously stacked cast. I love seeing Josh Hartnett.
Nailed it.
Your scenes with Florence Pugh, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just literally the best of the best.
Yeah. Best in the world.
This movie, like, and, you know, in addition to critics loving it, obviously has really struck a chord with audiences. Did it catch you? It had to catch you, even if you expect great things. This has been like a crazy success. Did it catch you at all off guard?
Yeah, I mean, I've never experienced anything like it in my life. You know, it's wild. So humbling. You know, and we're all so proud. And things like these you can never plan or predict. They just take fire in a way, and it did. And it's great for cinema. You know.
Do you have any theories onto why it resonates so much? My mom actually went to the theater for the first time in 6 years to see it.
I don't know. I mean, like a 3-hour R-rated movie about a physicist. I mean, I don't know. I think Chris Nolan movies are events, first of all, and I think that is definitely a thing, and they should be events because they are events. And he presents the movies in such a way that like nobody else does, you know, and like people going to see that movie in the IMAX over and over again. It's an overwhelming experience, and I think a lot of it has to do with that and his genius as a filmmaker. But there's a extra sort of magic dust that happened that I don't know what it was.
By the way, someone told me that the movie, he probably could have even made it longer, except the IMAX platters won't hold more than 3 hours.
I believe it had to be like 3 hours dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He previously pushed it past the length that IMAX platters were allowed to hold.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and with another one of his, I think Interstellar.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
and so he's like, well, can we do 3 hours now? So he's actually creating new technologies for theaters.
He is. The black and white film had never been made before
right.
for the IMAX.
Yeah, so did you even know if that would work?
No, I mean it was we were just waiting to get it back from the lab every day, you know, and it did, but they'd never done it before.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to take some more questions from the audience, and I think it's Joe Jagatic. Is that close to the truth? When preparing for roles, is there any routines that you consistently do?
Let me see. I can't learn lines off a screen. I have to have a real script. I never learn my lines with anybody else.
Really?
Can't do it. It's a totally private exercise.
Can you use the apps where you
can't use anything digital? No. What else? I need to be on my own. Like I love to just be like spend as much time away on my own if possible, prepping. Anything else? That's interesting. It's all so dull. I don't know. It's that immersive thing. It starts with the prep, and it kind of begins to take over, and it seeps into everything, really. You know.
Do you use music at all, or when you're on set to like get into?
I do. Yeah, I do a lot. But again, it changes with every job.
Yeah.
Some jobs I use it like all the time. Other jobs I don't use it at all. It's I will use it to relax, but it depends on the job.
Like, did you have an Oppenheimer playlist with?
No.
Oh, okay.
This one, my brain was too full.
Yeah, I believe
it's just too full.
You don't have time to sit. You don't have time to listen to.
I didn't have any time to do that. No.
We have a question from Lisa Lee. Wants to know if do you have aspirations or current plans to work behind the camera, i.e., writing, directing, or producing?
No as a writer, no as a director. I have produced. EP three eps or 3 series of Peaky, and just produced a film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this year, and I'm enjoying that.
Can you talk more about that, or is it?
Yeah, it's a film called Small Things Like These, adapted by Enda Walsh.
Oh no way.
Yeah, and we're finished it, and it's hopefully going to be out next year.
Are you in it as well?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Did you see The Quiet Girl, that Irish?
Oh,
nice
yeah.
movie? Same writer. Same. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. What
Yeah.
was it like to be on the other side of producing, especially, I don't know how involved you were with casting and assembling.
All of it. I mean, I like it. I think, I think the thing about it is that if you spend enough time on film sets, and it's not that much of a mystery, really,
Yeah.
and you begin to kind of figure it out. And I think it's valuable, certainly on Peaky, I think it was valuable to have someone at the table that was in the trenches as well, making it, and then had a point of view, and you could get involved and have a kind of create a point of view on it. And yeah, I've loved it, and I got a lot of like I got a lot of my friends worked on the movie, and in fact, it was produced by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's company.
Oh, no way.
AE produced it as well. So like it was a lot of it was lovely to
Yeah.
work with the people that you worked with over the years, and I really enjoyed that. I find it very, very creative. But I'm not a writer, and I'm lucky enough to have worked with such directors that I never want to try it.
Directors think on a different level that I
Yeah.
just don't understand.
vocation,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. We have a question from Christina F. Wants to know, your prolific career has spanned film, television, stage, and voiceover. What's your favorite medium of storytelling?
I don't really have one. To me, it's the story, and the medium is secondary. Really, that's always the way it's been. Like I just follow the story. That's honest. That's the honest answer, really. I'll do telly and I'll do theatre if I think the story is better, or at the time this is the best story that presents itself. Yeah.
Sort of along those lines, a question from Harrison Knight. Hello. Wants to know, what's the most demanding role you've ever taken on? And are there any roles that you would not take, other than ones that you could do?
Yeah. Oh, I'd say to date it's probably been Oppenheimer was kind of the most challenging or demanding, or certainly the most scary, but also probably the most rewarding. Yeah.
Do you have any kind of ritual to like shake your characters when you're done with the project?
No, I mean, I get asked this as well. Like the thing about it is, like if you do anything for like 17 to 18 hours a day for a long time, when you stop, you're gonna have a lot of displaced energy.
Yeah.
That's just but it becomes this whole romanticized thing about, man, I'm still walking around. You're not. You're just not doing it. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's me anyway. And I feel like it's the trying to like get back into real life, because you have all this energy and this focus, and all of a sudden it's turned off. So naturally you're kind of in this in between environment where you're not the character.
Yeah.
You're not yourself, but you don't know what to do. So that's all that it is for me. That's all that it is. It's just it's a very abrupt cessation of something that you've been deeply immersed in. So then the come down the is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
I was
not
wondering
that special.
I was thinking it must be harder for the people around you than for you yourself, because they're like, who are we getting today?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. And I only notice it on reflection, and my family. I think I noticed I had a lot of displaced energy.
Do they appreciate your? I mean, kids are never impressed by their parents, but like, have they been able to see Oppenheimer? Do they like know that this is all in a good cause?
Oh yeah, they're older now. They're like 16 and 18, so they really get it.
Yeah,
they get it. Yeah, but in a very like underwhelmed state.
Like I said, they can't be impressed.
No, they would be wrong if they were. Yeah.
Question from Jennifer wants to know: do you have a dream role?
No, I don't actually. It has always been. Like most of actors' careers are so haphazard and not by design. No, anyone who says, "Oh, you have a career plan," is lying. Like you don't. You're just trying to figure it out day by day, and you never know what the universe is going to throw at you. You never know what the industry is going to spit out next. So you just try and find the good work in that. So I have no dream thing. The dream is to just kind of keep working and just challenging it yourself, I suppose.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, rather than, even though you've done some of the classics, you seem more interested in doing new works on stage.
On stage, yes. I'm more interested in putting out new work, because I feel like all those amazing roles have been done so brilliantly by so many brilliant actors. I don't know what I can add, you know.
We have a question from Chandler Lavelle. Hopefully I got that correct. Hey! Wants to know, how would you recommend to a young actor train when trying to level up to go from great to undeniably talented?
What was the question? I did.
Well, it's how would you recommend a young actor train when trying to level up? To go from great to undeniably talented. For you, it was on the job training.
On the job, yeah, and theatre. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of theatre. I think it's like the best way you can possibly learn. It's the most terrifying thing to do in an exhilarating way, is to go up in front of a live audience and just perform and bring that character to life and do it repeatedly over and over and do 2 shows a day. You know, and the other thing I would say, I suppose, is just make shit. You know, like make films and make short films and get your friends together and do all of that. I didn't have the technology to do that when I was younger, but now you can do it on your phone. You know, so like I really advocate young actors to go, and directors to go and just make stuff. Put it out.
Why not? Yeah. Or never show it to anyone, but get the experience. Yeah.
And persevere. Write letters. Yeah. People love a letter nowadays.
Really, like an old-fashioned.
We're not that old.
You mean email, right? Send an email.
But like actually write a letter to somebody. I think people really appreciate getting a letter, handwritten to someone, and to say how much I love your work. I would love to work with you.
Wow. Have you done that?
Yeah, I used to do it all the time. Yeah.
Did it? I mean, you've worked with pretty much every amazing director, so I'm guessing it worked out.
I mean, I was talking to a director there recently, and she said, "I remember you wrote me a letter in 1996, which I'd forgotten about."
You're kidding.
97, yeah.
Are you going to work together soon? Or?
I hope so.
Yeah.
It took a while, but
I was going to say. We have a question from, I think is it Desiree or Desiree? Desiree Mendez wants to know, how did you build your confidence in the beginning of your career to the point where you felt you could contend with the talented people around you?
Oh, very slowly. Very slowly, but I think that's better than like the cannonball stuff where you get immediately, working with like huge names or anything like that. For me, it was just very gradually working in Ireland, getting to know the people in the acting community in Ireland, doing theatre, touring around, then doing little bits, and then going, right, I can work. So I could learn, and then just reading plays. And I read a lot of like actors' biographies.
Oh, really? Oh, I love a good actor biography.
Yeah, don't ask me which ones now, because but I had them all. And a lot of directors' books on directing and stuff like that. But in terms of the confidence, I don't know. It's a work in progress, to be honest with you. Yeah.
I mean, even at this point, do you show up to set and be like, "Oh my God, I'm about to do a scene with Robert Downey Jr."
Yes, you do. And I think if you didn't, there would be something wrong with you. And I think it's an important energy to kind of you need to have some of that energy when you go into a scene. If you go into a scene knowing that you're wonderful and like knowing how to do it, it's not going to be right. Because nobody walks into a room knowing, I'm going to know exactly what I'm going to do. Like everyone walks into a room trying to figure it out. As human beings, we don't know how we're going to be. So you're always just figuring it out as we go. So like I think if you walk into a scene knowing how to do it, you're fucked. Yeah.
Speaking of actor biographies, are you looking just for stories, or are you looking for like tips on how they did it, or just a good story?
I suppose the journey of how you became an actor and how you persevered and how you just kept getting up after getting like rejected and getting up again, and then also choices, and like we've all taken the wrong job, and but that's okay. Yeah, you can still keep your taste and your values intact, even if you take the wrong job for a minute. It's okay. So all of that, I'm very curious about that.
I'm also guessing you don't always know it's the wrong job. That you sometimes find that out later.
Yeah. But you look back and say that was probably the wrong motivation. Yeah.
Have you read Brian Cox's?
No, I have not.
It's really good. He just does not care.
Yeah.
It is so blunt and beautiful.
He's so amazing. I love him.
Actually, one I really highly recommend is Rob Lowe's first autobiography.
Oh, I haven't read that
Stories
either.
I Only Tell My Friends. This guy has had the craziest life.
I did know a little bit of that.
Yeah, he was like the Forrest Gump of Hollywood. He just happened to be there when they were like making Star Wars, or like Martin Sheen was his neighbor and jumped out of the bushes one time at Halloween. Like just the craziest stories.
Yeah,
and
they're great to read.
Yeah, I don't really know if I gleaned anything about acting, but what a crazy book. This might kind of go along with the last question, but Clint wants to know, from your journey of being an actor, what would you tell yourself at 21? The band isn't going to work out.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. That
By the
door
way, is
is-
your brother mad?
Pardon?
Is your brother mad? Did he stay
No,
with music?
he's happier.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very tough industry.
Oh
I think
my
it's a
God,
lot tougher
yeah.
than our industry. I think
Yeah.
the music industry, particularly now. I don't know. I would have said just persevere and actually, believe your instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Instinct over intellect. Always instinct. Just because you can rationalize it doesn't mean it's right. If you feel it, then it's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I really strongly believe. So I would have told my 21-year-old self that.
We have a question from Jonella Landry, I think. Hi. In the beginning of your career, were you selective in regards to what roles you took on, or being a new actor at the time, took whatever came your way? I ask because there's an emphasis for new actors these days to take ownership over their art and protect how they are portrayed.
Yeah, I think I think you should take ownership over it, but I also don't think you should be too hard on yourself. Like I was saying earlier, like, you know, we'll all make mistakes and we'll all take the wrong job and we'll all give performances we're not proud of, and there's a variety of reasons for that, you know. But I don't think we should ever like beat ourselves up, and it's just it's a long road, hopefully, you know. And I read somewhere else when I was younger, I don't know who'd said it, I think it might have been one of the Sydney Lumet or Sydney Pollock. I can't remember which one, but he said it takes 30 years to become an actor. Yeah. And I really believe that. Like, I really believe that you're just figuring stuff out. You know, you're getting life experience. You know, you get married. You have all of these things are part of becoming an actor, not just being on stage, or being in films, but just being a human being and living. So I think by 30 years. You do have a lot of life experience, hopefully, and you have able to transmit that onto screen, hopefully.
I'm guessing right now when people see you, they really want to talk about Oppenheimer. But prior to this, what would you say was the thing that people most... Because you don't just make movies. These are movies that like really resonate with people, that they remember 20 years later. They're kind of like iconic, you know, life posts in people's lives. What is it that they most want to talk about?
Honestly, it's Peaky Blinders.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Honestly. Yeah. But then it's lovely when someone picks a film that is one of the lesser known films. Like someone mentioned Sunshine. I'm very proud of that movie, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit, I think, when it came out. But it's a brilliant movie. But it's nice when people mention ones that you put your heart and soul into, but didn't quite connect in a huge way. I like that.
Look at that cast of Sunshine, by the way. They've all turned out okay.
They did all right.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
No, that's a great movie. And you mentioned that you produced and you're in this film coming up. Is there anything else that you have that you know is on the horizon? Do you want to get back to theater soon?
I'd maybe like to do a play at some point. But no, I'm want to get this film out into the world, the one that we made, and that's kind of what I'm engaged with right now. Yeah.
Is it done, or is it ready
It's
to
done,
be?
yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
ready,
Does it
yeah.
have distribution, or can we look for it?
I can't give you all the details on that right now, but watch this space. It'll be soon. There will be news.
Amazing.
To come soon, yeah.
I cannot wait. And honestly, congratulations on a fantastic year, a fantastic movie. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a great audience.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Cool.